Okay, I will call the August 2nd, 2023 Environment and Land Use meeting to order at 8:31. Roll call of committee members. Randy,
Yes.
Stacy Klein,
Klein here.
David Larson,
Here.
Anthony Munson,
Here.
Andrew Todd,
Here.
Don Waldera,
Here.
and for staff, Mark,
George Gamera.
Mike Kornman,
Mike Kornman.
and I see Amy is sitting in back. So we have a certify that open meeting law requirements have been met with proper posting. We have a 22-item agenda today. Entertain a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Okay, motion by Klein, second by Todd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, has everyone had a chance to read through our July 5th regular meeting minutes? Any corrections or additions?
No, but they were very extensive,
Yes.
very thorough minutes.
Okay.
Well, I figured you'd have to reread them, so.
Okay, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Larson, second by Waldera. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay,
Was there another meeting held after July 5th?
not a ELU meeting.
Rumor has it that there was a survey of the committee on whether to bring back the surveyor contract to the agenda this month.
There was a poll taken.
I did not receive that.
Okay,
I did not get through everyone, and I did not get through the entire poll, and then it became a moot point with the addition of the item on the amended agenda.
yeah,
It was corrected, but I assume it was only brought to the attention because of some backgrounding done on Monday between some people here that it wasn't going to be on the original agenda. It got amended after Monday's discussion amongst a few people with Corp Council and a few other things.
okay.
Okay.
All right, we have next, item number 6 is a public hearing for a conditional use permit for a farm, home, business, accessory, outdoor pizza venue. Randy, would you read the notice?
Yes. There will be a public hearing held before the Trumpealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. in the County Boardroom Courthouse, 36245 Main Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose is to consider a conditional use permit, farm, home, business, accessory for an outdoor pizza venue. The location is the southeast one quarter of the southwest one quarter, section 19, Township 23 North, Range 8 West, in the town of Hale, Trumpealeau County, Wisconsin. Hearing requested by Thomas and Carrie Babler, Independence, Wisconsin, owner petitioner. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you are unable to attend and have any questions, please call Mark Carlson with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919 or email to markcarlson@county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comments to the Department of Land Management, P.O. Box 67, Whitehall, Wisconsin 54773, or email to Mark Carlson once again. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Mark Carlson of the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919. Sincerely, Mark Carlson, Zoning and Sanitary Specialist.
Thank you, Randy. I should note the call the public hearing to order at 8:36. Mark, can you give us an overview?
Yes, I was contacted by Mr. Babler about his intention of what he wanted to do with it. We were talking initially about wood-fired pizza, and we did rezone a piece of property a few years back, and I guess we just feel we'd like to address some of these things at the conditional use permit level instead of doing rezone after rezone. And I think he falls into the criteria of the farm home business type thing. It doesn't really specify the type of business, it just meets the criteria because of his property. And right now, and then after, they're here to discuss and answer any questions, but primarily, it's an outdoor venue for wood-fired pizza. And I guess there was some other stuff discussed. When I read the letter to the town it sent, there's a little bit more entailed in that, but right now, this is just for wood-fired pizza venue. And the neighbors were contacted. It was in the paper for public hearing notice. I received no input from either. And, I guess if they have any more to add, I guess you can ask them. But right now, it's kind of, that's it in summary.
Okay, we'll probably have you guys sit up the table down there, just in case the committee's got some questions. In the meantime, if anyone at home wishes to voice an opinion or ask questions, you can call in at 715-538-1894. Anything you guys would like to add? I know you've been in business for a little while with your mobile.
We actually started as a mobile business. Yes, we started as a mobile business back in 2015 with intentions of doing a destination spot, like the Wing Havens, the one out in Yeager Valley, stuff like that. Seems like they are a huge hit anywhere they're located. Trying to find property in Trempealeau County, and just happened to land on a property on Roscus Road. So we have a liquor license out there, Class B wine and beers. So we have craft beers and stuff like that, as well as a few domestics and stuff. So pretty simple.
Sure.
Had big ideas, but I think I'm gonna tame it down a little bit, keep it simple, so make it a lot easier.
Okay. Again, if anyone at home wishes to offer comment, 715-538-1894. Do you have anyone registered? I don't think we got anyone testifying for or against. You have a letter from the town, though, I believe.
Yes, I do. This letter was dated June 22nd, 2023. The Town of Hale Board met on September 13th of 2022 to discuss the possibility of new business from Winona, Minnesota relocating to the township. This business would be a wood-fired pizza place. It would serve pizza, and they would also like to serve beer and wine with their meals on the premises. The location would be at N41995 Roscus Road, owned by Tom and Carrie Babler, and opening date would be 2023. The board was in total agreement on the business opening up at the town of Hale, and the only concern raised by David Lingen would be a water source and restrooms. In the end, it was decided that these two issues were for the county to address and not the township. The beer license would be available, but the township had never sold a wine license. So the price of a wine license was set at $200, and both would be available for the 2023 season. The board was unanimous for the recommendation that the Trumpealeau County Zoning Committee approve the conditional use permit for the Woodshed Mobile Wood-Fired Pizza Business. The letter of approval for the conditional use permit is being authorized by the Town of Hale Board and is being presented to the Trumpealeau County Zoning Committee by Donald Halverson, Town of Hale Clerk.
Thank you, Mark.
And the sewer and the restroom portion of it would be addressed. There's some business language. It'd be something simple as a couple porta potties in this scenario. So that would be an addressed thing.
Okay.
The health department's also involved. I'm not really part of that, but they've been in contact, I'm assuming, with the health department on some of the requirements, and they meet the requirements from us, so.
Okay. I think if anyone wishes to comment from home, they can call 715-538-1894. Anything else you'd like to add? Otherwise, I'll close the public comment period, hearing no phone ringing, at 8:41 and entertain a motion from the committee.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second by Todd. Now, discussion and questions from the committee. From Mr.
Welcome.
Babler.
Good luck.
Let's go.
I see no, okay, you indicated you had big plans and toned them back. Is there anything in this immediate in regarding to a construction of a building or anything like that here?
I think within the next, hopefully, year and a half, 2 years, possibly, a structure. It's not gonna be nothing enormous. We'd like to have a kitchen inside that and pavilion, kind of like I use the reference, the building in Pleasantville, their pavilion that they have their events at, something similar to that. And then, you know, that'd probably be about as easy as it would get, I guess.
Okay.
I had a question.
Randy.
Maybe I just didn't see it, but what's the size of the property size of the lot?
The lot,
Yeah.
it's 5.3 acres is what our
5.3. Okay, and then
area is, yes.
what about parking? Would you designate?
We have a spot that we want to designate for parking and stuff like that, and there is a possible overflow if we need it, so.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of approving this conditional use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And so you have your use permit. Congratulations.
This weekend we will be.
Well, that's exciting. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is another conditional use permit for utility facility, electrical substation from Riverland Energy in the town of Ettrick. Do you have it ready to read?
I'm ready.
Randy will read. I will call this hearing to order at 8:43. And Randy, please read the call.
There will be a public hearing held before the Trumpealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023 at 8:35 a.m. in the County Boardroom Courthouse, 36245 Main Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose is to consider a conditional use permit for a utility facility, and it'll be an electrical substation. The location is the northeast one quarter of the southwest one quarter, section 4, township 19 north, range 7 west in the town of Ettrick, Trumpealeau County, Wisconsin. The parcel number follows. Hearing is requested by Riverland Energy Cooperative, Arcadia, Wisconsin, owner petitioner. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you're unable to attend and have any questions, please call Mark Carlson with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919 or email to mark.carlson@county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comments to the Department of Land Management, P.O. Box 67, Whitehall, Wisconsin 54773, or email to markcarlson@county.trempealeau.us. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Mark Carlson of the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919. Sincerely, Mark Carlson, Zoning and Sanitary Specialist.
Thank you, Randy. If anyone at home wishes to comment on this conditional use permit, call 715-538-1894. Rob, if you'd want to take a seat up here too. We have Rob Sensala from Riverland Energy here. Mark, do you have a letter from?
Yeah, Rob came in and talked to me, and we just require a conditional use permit for a utility substation, of that nature. And so we applied, and we notified neighbors. We had public notice. Nothing came of it. I have a letter from the town.
Would you go ahead and read that?
The town of Ettrick has no objections with Riverland Energy putting a substation being placed off of Simonson Lane in the town of Ettrick.
Okay. If anyone at home wishes to offer any comments, 715-538-1894. So we have that. Just need to Call one more time for public comment. Is nobody registered, I assume? 715-538-1894. And the phone's not ringing, so I'm gonna close public comment at 8:46. And entertain a motion from the committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Klein,
Second.
second by Munson. Any discussion or questions for Rob? Pretty straightforward, Dave?
Just a little bit, I don't see it here, but I assume this will all be properly fenced and safety measures taken and all that sort of stuff, right? Yep. Just verifying that.
Okay, seems logical.
It does seem logical, but it hadn't been said.
Yep, no, that's okay. Any other questions, discussion? Call the vote. All in favor of approving this conditional use permit, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. You have your permit. Thank you, sir. Okay, item number 8 on the agenda today is a department realignment discussion, possible action. And that, are you ready to leave that?
All right. This is the proposed realignment that I briefly discussed at the previous regular meeting. The idea is we're trying to retain staff and become more effective in the work we do and efficient. By realigning these positions, we can accomplish that. What it does in the proposed, I think the best sheet you can look at is the proposed DLM organizational chart, and what that does is it has we kind of revised the job description of the county conservationist, and we have a current employee moving in that position, and then we have 2 county or conservation specialists under that county conservationist, and we have our currently our parks person move into that the open position there. On the PTED side, that Parks and Conservation Specialist position would be revised and was approved yesterday at PTED, revised to a Parks and Recreation Coordinator position. Earlier in the year, PTED approved a new position, 3/4 time. If you guys, PTED, with PTED's approval yesterday, that eliminates the need for that additional position. And so we're able to accomplish all of our goals here without adding any new positions and just shuffling staff around to a better alignment. So essentially, we'll have three divisions: a conservation division, planning and zoning division, and a economic development and tourism and parks division. And so the salary implications are essentially, we're moving, for the land management budget, we're moving the parks and conservation position from the land management budget to the parks budget. So what I'm asking today is approval of the realignment and the moving of the parks and conservation position to the parks budget.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on this discussion?
Is this position just specifically a parks position, or could it be anything in the Department of Land Management? Say it could be a zoning tech or
Are
anything
you
of
talking
that
about
order?
the Parks and Recreation Coordinator?
No, I'm talking about the position that you want to move, that must be Reed's position or whatever, that's half and half, is that?
Split time.
It's
Split
not,
time?
it's not half and
20?
half, it's 25% conservation.
Okay,
And he'll move to 100% conservation
Yes.
now.
no, it will be.
Reed would move to 100% conservation, and then that Parks, Reed's current position would end up being 100% Parks, Recreation, and Tourism.
And that 75% then is part of this committee's budget yet?
100% of it
100% of it is.
is in the land management.
So is what you're saying is you want us to give up, so the 75 or all 100 then to the park?
100, yeah, 20, yeah. I'm not sure what the history is, why that position was in the land management budget. I think it goes back, probably
The only
back to
reason I'm
20.
asking is I believe that our zoning issues and comp plans may need more assistance, because that's the greatest volume on a day-to-day basis of this committee and department. maybe we need to save that money to possibly expand, because our experienced employees here are gonna be on the verge of coming up on retirement, and we need somebody trained to fulfill these positions before that time may come. Is my feeling.
Fair comment.
Since that money's in this budget, I mean, I don't know, that's just a thought.
It is a thought, for sure. Other thoughts, Dawn?
I appreciate the thought too. I think it's valid, but it's hard to, in my mind, I don't know how we can budget for future possibilities. We need to try. We need to be forward thinking and definitely do our best to try to accommodate and put in the budget whatever is we think is coming. But when it comes to staff like that, things change all the time. So I think we have to deal in the now.
Any other thoughts, comments on proposed restructure?
Maybe I'll just say that I did at PTED or at another meeting, I'm not sure which, did speak with Reed and Hallie and some of the other members who do feel like this realignment is very feasible. Trusted that Mike had spoken to them and had discussions throughout the department, but wanted to just verify and make sure that everyone felt good about it. And those that I was able to touch base with, which wasn't everyone, are very supportive of the change. And I think that thinking outside of the box and looking at things as a whole for the department is actually a very good thing on Mike's part.
We had multiple conversations with staff. If staff if they were not on board on this, the proposal would have looked different.
Any other questions, comments? Somebody want to make a motion to the effect of moving forward?
Yeah, make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Well, there and Todd. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of realigning the Environment and Land Use Department, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 9 is our budget, 2024 budget and fee schedule.
First, I just want to double check, are we still not able to bring the budget? There's some internet connections issues out there, so to bring the budget and put it up on screen, we're not able to do that. So it'll be up to committee members here to follow through on their computers. But I just want to say, to start off this process, Amy started it here in June, and so she jumped right in, and we've been working with it as a team. She's brought a lot to the table, and we've got a really good budget here. It is one of the more challenging budgets this year for a number of reasons. It'll be more challenging to compare it last year to this year for a number of different reasons. We have that position, Parks and Conservation position, part of the budget moving into parks, so that's different. We also have a recommendation that we eliminate a non-lapsing account for building inspections, so that the way we deal with that in the budget impacts the numbers and will make it look different than it did last year. And then, and of course, one last thing is we do have a number of non-lapsing accounts, and later in the process here, I'll hand out this sheet, but this is the final 2022 balances for the non-lapsing accounts. We received this document at 4:29 yesterday. So we were not able to incorporate all the numbers in here. And when we look at some of the numbers, we need to investigate it more and ask some more questions about the numbers. So while we'll present the budget here today, and as we go page by page, you'll find that is a pretty good budget. And I look forward to your input on it. But more than likely, we're going to have to revisit this at the September, regularly scheduled September meeting. So with that, we'll start. I got to bring up my budget page. On page 1, you'll see we have a reduction from last year.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Nope, sorry.
I see on the cover sheet here, there's an item on here, it says allocating $0 for land use planning contracts. I assume that's the comprehensive plan, non-lapsing account?
Correct.
Well, there's a resolution from March of 2010 that states that we are supposed to allocate at the minimum of $6,000 per year for updating town plans, because 3 town plans per year are supposed to be reviewed. And as of 2010, there's resolution here that states that.
I'd like to see the details of that at some point. Last year, the exec finance reduced that, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, reduced that amount to $5,000 last year. And of course, this budget is approved by this, is forwarded on to exec finance by this committee. So if you want to add any amount for comprehensive planning in there, you can.
Because if I may, I can read the resolutions, or how the committee back then designated all this was basically, it was unused salary of staff went in, any extras went into this account besides the $6,000 annually to help flow, because in other years, or for inflation, because at the time of this, each comprehensive plan was quoted through the Mississippi River Planning Commission of $2,000. Now, at our last Towns Association meeting in March, you brought that gentleman in from, or not March, I mean June?
I did not bring him in.
Or he was on the agenda anyway. And he updated the towns now that they are gonna charge $12,000 for plans. And according to our records, roughly, I believe, we're not all renewed at the same time. We are renewed, I mean, when this all started back in '98, it was the north and the south counties, because that's where the most population expansions were gonna be. So according to some of this, in 2000, the town of Gale, Caledonia, and Trempealeau joined this first, and then Sumner, Albion, and Unity joined in 2000. So it's my understanding, every 10 years by state statute of the smart growth plans, that's our anniversaries.
Correct.
And then so then the other counties in 6, 7 would be renewed in the middle parts or whatever.
Correct.
And then you stated then that there was no funding and no staff for us to update through the county. The towns were responsible. Yes, it's in the minutes from July of 22 in the town of Caledonia.
Well, I would respectfully disagree with those minutes. The way it has been done in the past is that comprehensive planning has been contracted out to Mississippi Regional Planning Commission.
Correct.
So that is staff. So that staff is available.
But my understanding is the 5 years or the midterms were done in-house.
5 year.
Well, on a see, that's why there's 3 townships renewed every year on a 5-year revolving basis, where the midterms were done in-house. And then the 10-year, when the state plan needed to be submitted, we hired Mississippi River Planning Commission to compile all of that information.
I haven't seen any information on midterms or 5-year updates. By state.
Verge, I don't know, is that how it's been done in the past, or am I incorrect? I don't know, please.
I read at that one hearing, I read that the town plans needed to be done 3 to 5 years, and it's right in their plans that they.
Correct. It's in our state plans that we submit.
Looked at.
Reviewed, yeah. It started out being every 3 years, and then I believe it was amended to 5 years to coincide with the smart growth plan reviews of the county. since everybody joined as of 2010.
Well, and that's Andrea and Kirsty, that's what they did, was
Correct.
and
And
the
since-
planning.
There's nothing stopping the towns from updating their plans every 5 years.
No, correct. But as the towns being the backbone of the comprehensive and zoning of the county's the skin in the face, which does the day-to-day purposes for consistency and everything else, so the towns ain't liable for that. But I'm just saying, there's a resolution stating that we have to fund this through the county.
That's up to you. It's up to this committee
but I'm just
and the
saying
county
that-
board.
Question, what's the current financial obligation for the towns when it comes to the renewing the plans?
Well, that's what I'd like to know, because I've read the minutes from 2008 to 23 to see where or how it became the county's responsibility, whether that was the agreement since they collect building permit fees, sanitary fees, and all that. If that was the offset for the cost justification, or how it all was, I don't know. Since the expert people have either left the town's government, that's a question to bring back in here to educate us on how this is really supposed to function.
The comprehensive plans, historically, how they've been done, the county adopts, once the town adopts their comprehensive plan, the county adopts that as the county's comprehensive plan. So really, it serves two purposes. So the town has its own investment in the plan, the county has its investment, and it's really kind of letting the towns take the lead on that. One thing to keep in mind is that one of the other long-range plans we do is the farmland preservation plan. One of the challenges that has impacted our zoning is that farmland preservation plan contradicts the comprehensive plan. So one of the things that we were able to do this summer is to get the farmland preservation plan extended to align with the 10-year comprehensive timeframe. And so now we're able to do the farmland preservation plan and the comprehensive plans together as kind of one process. And what that also allows us to do is to apply for and get up to $30,000 in farmland preservation planning grant money from the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. So that will help to reduce costs. So at the end of the day, I think this whole idea of what the town should pay and the county should pay, I think that's a very worthwhile discussion. And what was decided in 2010, to me, that's a 2023 is a good point in time to review that and see if that still makes sense.
So is the working plans, is that another term for farmland preservation through the state, or is that a separate program? Because I'm trying to read or figure out which is what.
The Working Lands program that came up in the early 2000s also included aspects of pursuing a purchase of development rights program that the state, that never got implemented and things like that. So the Working Lands program was it was more than a broader form than farmland preservation.
Virgin, I think you have something.
Actually, when they stopped doing the farmland preservation contracts, they came up with the ag enterprise areas where you had to have a number of farmers to claim that credit. And so the AEA, or working lands, actually kind of replaced the individual farmland preservation contracts. There are still some out there, but those are eventually going to expire and be put by the wayside.
And those farmers and the AEAs are not able to maximize their tax credits because we don't have a certified farmland preservation zoning district. Because the towns can't meet it because of the way our farmland preservation plans were done.
But we can change the way our farmland preservation plans were done.
Yes, and that's not a 1-month project. And that's why we're trying to, what happened is, did comprehensive planning over here, and then later on we did it over here, we ended up with a conflict. So if we do them as one process, we'll get consistency.
Do I understand then, I just want to, I don't know much about this stuff, so I just want to make sure that I'm hearing what I think I'm hearing. One, that regulations require every 10 years But here at the county, in Trempealeau County, we had a resolution that said that we would review a midterm at 5 years.
Correct.
So we're
It-
meeting the law, the regulation, but we are not currently meeting what the county here had said through
We are
resolution.
currently not meeting the 5-year midterms because the department either is understaffed or has not been enforced to do these reviews.
There hasn't been the interest from many of the towns. I haven't had the towns approach
I
me
beg to differ.
wanting to do comprehensive planning. I have not received any interest in that.
Question,
And if the towns want to do that, let's do it.
yeah, I was gonna ask for the status on, because I know you're putting together a committee of some of the town
Yep,
board
that was-
members. So do you know the status on that and when we'd be more moving forward? Because then back to Anthony's original question, should we have money in this if we don't know how much we're gonna be paying or the towns will be paying? You know, it sounds like we still have a bit to sort out.
Yes, we do. And we can do that this fall.
Okay.
So from a budget standpoint, then we need to put some dollars in there, it sounds like.
Correct.
What would be reasonable? We don't know, that's the problem,
That
right?
I don't know. I mean, I just told you, yes, from 2010 to 2023, they've gone up $10,000 each plant. And by the time they renew in 27 or 28, when Mr. Corman says that's when they should be, they could be inflated higher. And where does that revenue come from?
One thing to also keep in mind, $12,000. What's the scope of that plan when they say that? I'm not sure what's included in that $12,000 price. One of the keys in doing this project is really determining to what extent, what aspects of the plan you want to update. How much do you want to include the public? Do you want to do a town-wide survey, a county-wide survey? Do you want to have focus groups? Do you want to do a whole bunch of mapping? You know, one of the things that was not done in the current plans, there wasn't an existing land use plan made. Sometimes that's really helpful to do. That wasn't done in the current plans. So a lot depends on the scope of the update, and the towns would have the ability to determine what that scope is. Do you want a big scope, or do you want a more of a narrow update? And that's really up to each individual town, and that impacts the price significantly.
Correct, because I believe in the Town of Unities did their update in 2018. With Ms. Heidenreich did it then. We had meetings, we had a public hearing on input, which few showed up of interest or whatever, but basically all the work was done here in-house, and we never saw a bill at the town. Whether she worked with the Mississippi River Planning Commission at the time, or this or that, but that's how that was all formulated. The Town of Unity never saw a bill for that update.
But the county did.
Correct. Whether, like I said, whether that's how the working relationship is, the commitments, I don't know. If anybody here could
Yeah, and
help
I-
support me in that,
Yeah, and I think, just thinking one of the townships in my district, they don't see themselves changing a whole lot with the comprehensive plan. Yeah, or doing a whole lot, so, and in the past, the county has assisted or paid. So that's where we really need to figure out, like, maybe we need to go to somebody from that commission and find out, okay, like you're talking about the scope of work, what range are we looking at?
well, there's certain statutes
then
too
figure-
that we have to follow
Yeah, yep.
to meet the state regulation,
yep.
because basically the county's not
Yeah,
making us do this.
it's
the
the
state
state, yep,
statute
Yeah.
that's,
yeah.
was
So-
their smart growth plan, so instead of the state telling us what to do, we took initiative to keep local control,
Yep,
is
very
what we
good.
wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And thinking of, if there is a municipality.
Emery,
that
if you could, you
wants
worked
to
in this
minimal-
department, could you
I was
shed some
in
light?
this department in the past, and I can kind of speak to some of the history of what I saw happen when I was in the department, because I had some joint duties along with zoning when I was in here and planning, and the process, and I don't know the details of how it worked budgetarily, but I can say process-wise, we as the county would come to the town's meetings. we would sit down with them, and usually the county was bringing forth a map saying, here's zoning issues in your area we're concerned with, here's planning issues in your area we're concerned with. The town, meanwhile, would give us their feedback. The public was invited to those meetings, and we'd usually have a couple sessions where, as county staff, we'd come and sit at the individual town meetings and help them go through that plan and update it. So we were providing staff, and I believe that funding, I don't know that what in those interim plans, I can't speak to whether or not the Mississippi Valley Planning Consortium was part of those, but I think it was really just in-house in the department from my experience during that time period. And I don't know if if it was in-house or not, Verge, if you...
Well, a lot of it was done in-house, and we were the initiator and the facilitator, and then I think if they needed expertise, they would go to Mississippi River Regional Planning Commission for that expertise.
And I think we had a lot of that expertise in-house in the department, where there wasn't necessarily a lot of outside consulting that was required to do that planning, but we really, as the county at that point in time, were taking the lead with the towns. I know I have had some concerns expressed from the towns to me over that process and how it has changed, and they don't understand what's changed necessarily. But as we're hearing, from our representative of the towns here, we've got those concerns. And I guess historically, there was a involvement from this committee and department helping the towns through their process. Largely, I would say, taking the lead doing that for them. So that's, I guess, a little history anyway.
Okay, thank you, Emery. Dave?
Just following up on that a little bit, I was on the Albion group that worked with us 10 years ago and 5 years ago and whatever. We did get pretty good expertise from, I don't remember that Emery was at our meetings, but Pete Fletcher was up working with us and provided a lot of good information for us that we really had very little that we had to do. But now on our township, on the 5-year level, we did call a meeting, notified people, hey, we're just going to talk, anybody's got concerns, come to this meeting. Not a single person showed up. So it pretty much got left as was.
Okay. Don, do you have comments? See your mic on.
I forgot to shut it off.
Okay, well, that's fair.
But I actually will say, or I'm just wondering, it sounds like we're actually talking about how we handle these land, I'm sorry, I forget the terminology, the land use plans, and I'm assuming that there are probably a lot of different ways to skin that cat.
Right.
And what we used to do maybe has changed and maybe isn't what the townships want to have happen. Doesn't make it wrong, but maybe we need to have a discussion apart from today's meeting to further define how we go ahead and do those in the future, so that we're all on the same page and we're all supporting one another mutually. We want to collaborate, right? But for today's purposes, we really do have to put some dollars, right, to the budget.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's my point too, is because there's certain parts of this county, say the town of Trempealeau is expanded, there's housing developments that are exceeding their sanitary capacities, and there may be future things coming up here down the road. And I know you said we can't plan for the future prior to what I said when we moved the
Well,
position from here.
staffing future is
Staffing
tough.
but okay, so our zoning is stretched now thin, so I feel we still need an extra person in this zoning part, because that's a day-to-day item. Conservation and parks is not, I shouldn't say, that's a whole separate animal, I guess, from this. Whereas Mark and Verge are stretched as thin as possible. They're not doing their job to the fulfillment that they should be, we're hearing. Because like there's some sanitary permits that ain't being inspected just because there's time restraints or whatever. I mean, there's things that should be addressed a little more thorough. And that's why I feel that if we have a budgeted position in this committee, we shouldn't give that up because we have a need in the short term here for another employee. My feeling.
It's fair discussion. All of it's been pretty good.
And I understand today's long, we're going long, but I mean, it's just a budgetary item that should be in this budget.
I can definitely see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree. And obviously, this needs to be discussed further. And I've heard from townships too, not necessarily liking the direction. So it is definitely worth conversing about. I'm not sure if this is on one hand, it's the right time because it's budget time.
Well,
And if
that's
we're gonna
why I
add
guess I-
dollars for it, it's the right time. But it does potentially, blow things up for
I mean,
Amy and Mike, too.
would Amy be able to tell us how much unused salary has been used for 2023 by the vacant positions? So we could, say, designate them funds to
Towards
here?
that? Do you have any idea potentially where that could come out?
Because, I mean, our fiscal director was gone for 6 months. Charmaine's been gone for a couple months.
There's money there.
And there's money in this account. I believe there's $40-some thousand in this
Yeah, we're-
non-lapsing account. So I mean,
Well,
it's not
when
broke.
we get to the part on non-lapsing accounts, like I
Can
said, we,
discuss it there. I mean, that's fine.
well, yeah, and we just got the updated numbers at 4:29 yesterday, and that's some of the questions we have. The numbers, and again, maybe my understanding of the numbers are different than what was provided to us. That's one of the reasons why we want to spend some more time to take a look at that, because the number on this sheet is lower than what we were understanding it to be. So, bottom line here is, if you want to put money in the comprehensive planning, go forth and do it. If the towns wanna, you know, the whole purpose of this, getting the towns together to talk about comprehensive planning, that was to talk about this stuff and talk about things like adopting village powers. Have towns adopted village powers so they can adopt their comprehensive plan? Have they done a public participation plan? And all these different things that are required by state law to do these, and it's to bring everyone up to speed on that. And if towns want to engage in comprehensive planning on a more frequent basis, we can work on that.
So I think in the interest of time, let's keep progressing through the budget. And we'll cover things as they come up.
All right, page number 1. Salaries, we have at the, well, let's see, where is it? Page number, well, let me back up. This is a condensed budget from what I was used to looking at, so what was page 1 has looks like page 1 and page 2 on it. We have reductions on these pages due to the parks and conservation position being moved to parks. So you'll see those salary adjustments there. There's about 36 in salaries, and then about 17 in fringe benefits at the bottom of that. Any questions on that?
I do have a couple hard copies that,
Any,
I can't.
I got mine.
I'm having a hard time following where you are because of the. So we're on page 2?
well, it's page 1. When I look at it, the Excel spreadsheet that I'm used to looking at it, it's 2 pages, not 1. It's not 1. So page 1. Page 1 has the salaries with a subtotal and then the fringe as a subtotal. So about right above where the letter A, large letter A is a subtotal line, and you have 2023 and 2024. So that's 36, about a reduction of 36,000 there. And then below, at the bottom of that page 1 is a reduction in fringe. So it's 220,000 down to 203. And these salaries include steps for steps, but not cost of living for 2024.
So also in that orange column, that gives you the balance that we have, that's through June 30th. So that's where we sit right now for wages.
There it is.
That's what's remaining in the account?
That's what we've spent thus far.
Okay.
Through June 30th.
It's a normal. 2,080 hours is considered a normal work year.
Okay. Any questions on
Yeah,
page
just-
one, Dave?
Little sidetrack here. Your note on that first page, note 2,096 hours for 2024.
It's a leap year.
What does it mean?
That's
Leap year.
16 hours instead of 8. Leap year.
Usually it's
So the norm-
2,080 in a year.
That's
Correct,
normal, yeah,
that's
that's,
normal. So where's the 16 come
That came from the clerk's department, so.
So it's a leap year next year, so that's why we have to
Ah,
anticipate
leap
for
year,
those
okay.
hours.
from? That should only increase it by 8, I would assume, instead of 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what
That's
the
the
clerk
clerk's
told us to
office.
use.
That was our direction from the clerk's office.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I suppose that would cover fringe and everything
Yeah,
then. It's
probably.
it'd be 16 instead of just 8.
Yep.
Would be salaries and 16 is fringe. That makes sense.
okay.
All right, ready to go on to the next page?
Yeah.
And this is, I've got to increase the size of mine so I can read it better. Oh, here we go. Page 2, administrative office expenses. This is where, when I talked about eliminating a non-lapsing account on building inspections, this is where line 1 gets a little different. The surveying contract had started mid-year, I believe the spring of 2021. That was prior to me coming here. And so a non-lapsing account was set up. Not sure why. Amy and I both discussed this, trying to understand the reasons for why. We didn't quite understand why. The way the contract works, the contractor has a fee for certain items, and the fees we charge the public is 12% more. So generally speaking, anytime a permit is pulled for administrative expenses, we get a 12% cut on that. Previously, there's a non-lapsing account, and so the way it was done in the past, these expenses were not included in this part of the budget. So when you look at 2023, there's a zero there because these costs were incorporated into a non-lapsing account. So we're proposing to get rid of the non-lapsing account, bring it over here. And so you can also see, this is the one thing that Amy put a lot of work in, is getting the 3-year average for actuals and the individual actuals for those 3 years. And that's been really helpful in our budget process. So you can see starting in 2021, the actuals were 89,000, and then in 2020, I gotta scroll up the year. 2021 was 89,000 and change. 22 was 104,000.
Mike, excuse me, are you talking about the $50,000, like that was for the building inspector? Are you talking about that non-lapsing account?
Yes.
Okay, that was set up because, because the building inspector was on the levy, at first it was started out that they were paid based on the fees that were collected. So they thought in lean years, when there's not much inspection, they still had to pay the building inspector, so that money was set aside to pay the building inspector in those leaner years of inspection.
Is this pre-contract?
This is, well, I don't know how GEC, I don't know if we have any contractual obligations
Are you
with
saying this
GEC
when they-
prior. If we have a lean year in building inspection where it's down, I don't know if we still have to pay GEC because I'm not privy to that information. But it was set up because the inspector was supposed to be paid on fees collected is the way it started out. So then in lean years, they wanted money set aside so that if
We had
the
money
building
to pay
inspecting
them.
was down, they could take from that fund to pay the building inspector.
Okay, and I guess my question is that when the inspector was a county employee?
That makes sense for when we have a county employee doing it. Now that we're contracted with it,
I
don't know. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I don't know.
Like I said, I'm not discussed,
you were
that's
there
not
for
discussed
that.
with me, so.
With me,
So
I think we might have been the only ones.
So do we pay the building inspector on a site visit per time that way? Or is
That's
it a
what I think it
contracted
is.
salary
We
Correct.
per permit.
per permit?
So we're effectively, the permit's paying the fee
So
that
when the
we're
permit
paying
fees
them.
that we have here, they get a percentage, or that's how you calculate what each fee would be. Building permit is X amount of dollars, but building inspector gets a percentage of that, or however his fees.
Whatever. yeah,
They have a
whatever their
fee
fees
schedule
are.
in their contract, so
Yep.
like for inspecting a dwelling, they charge us X amount.
Yep.
And then our fee is X amount plus 12%.
But we have no, if there's no inspections, let's say in a year, we have no contractual obligation to them. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it is based on
I don't remember.
use.
I guess I didn't read that.
That is worthwhile verifying. Yeah, it makes sense as to why it was, why it would be in a fund like that for when
Yeah,
you
it's a
have
holdover
staff
from
member.
when it was
Right.
a county employee.
That totally
doing the
makes
job.
sense.
That makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
Question with that, is that, because like looking at the average is close to 100,000, but then the request is 80,000, is that kind of just what's projected, or
Yeah,
where did you arrive at, or how did you arrive at that number?
you know, it could be higher. You know, one of the things is you know, there are market things that go on, so you're making a judgment call on that. Could be higher. We have, you know, the 3-year average is
97.
I guess maybe it's more of a 2-year average, but it could go higher. Just made a judgment call there. And then correspondingly, when you look at the revenues, essentially the revenue projection is 12% above that 80.
So wouldn't it be feasible to leave that non-lapsing account since it exists, to put the overrun to compensate? So you only got 80,000 budgeted. 3-year average is 97. That's 17,000. That's half of what the overrun here is of 38.
And that, I'm gonna say in the budgeted amount here, it's kind of irrelevant because it's gonna be contracted anyway.
Contracted now.
So anytime
So now
it-
moving forward, it's
it's kind
stable.
of a
wash back and
wash.
forth.
Yeah. So the number probably doesn't matter a ton in this instant.
Correct.
That's my opinion. I was gonna ask Verge, like, do we get more building and, you know, do we get more requests towards the end of the year? But then again, it really doesn't matter because if it's money in, money out, I mean, I
Look
don't
at
know.
Oh,
her,
yeah,
she's-
if the snow starts flying, we get a lot of permits.
That's kind of what I figured. It's like, I can see the end of the year getting,
They know they gotta get it done.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I definitely see where the 80 came from, but, and it kind of doesn't matter. I think the more I think about it. Yeah. Contracted services.
It makes sense.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so to make, and again, this makes it a lot more challenging because we're you know, I think it makes sense to eliminate that non-lapsing account. Now to throw another wrench in here, but this is one of these things where we want to double check, and hearing that explanation on that really, the non-lapsing account that we got last night at 429 has in that non-lapsing account $208,005. So we just found this out, so that's a way to bring down our the levy. If we wanted to apply that all in 1 year, we could do that and bring down the levy number. So I'm just hanging that out there, but again, with these new numbers that we just got, we want to look into them further
That is the account that would be for building inspections.
for building inspection. And that's, again, some of these numbers, we want to double check. But that would bring down the budget quite a bit more. That first line, 210, professional services, in there we have money for the permit tracking software. Currently, that's been paid by Land Information. That's when Land Information left Land Management, that kind of went with them. They would like us to take over that. The costs for that are going from around $5,700. Everything's going to the cloud, and we're getting additional functionality on some of these things, and we're looking at about $15,000 to do that license next year. And also in there is, and this ties to a agenda item later in the budget, 21,000 for scanning, with conversations with additional staff. They're comfortable having files remotely stored, either in the old jail, if we could get permission from property to do that, or we do have a basement section that needs extensive cleaning, so that could happen down there. But the a old jail cell on the second floor would be a better, more user-friendly place. But we don't staff, they don't frequent those files on a daily basis. So that would be able, so that's, we could eliminate 21,000 from that line 210. Professional surveying services, I have an increase of $5,000 in that budget. And then going down the line here, I think telephone is a reduction because we have changes there.
So, I think in the interest of time, let's shift gears maybe. Any questions from the committee on page 2? Anything that's glaring?
Yeah.
Because if we go line by line, we'll be here all day long. Stacy?
Question, just the other office supplies that you crossed out, 319.
We are condensing we have 2 expense lines that have office supplies. So we are condensing it into one to make it, because it really doesn't make sense why we have 2.
Yep. Okay, good question. Anything else?
Actually, yeah, is all departments condensing to one line, or is it just this department that's condensing to one line?
Just this one. I'm not quite sure.
You're just not gonna code it to that?
Right.
Okay.
Anything else, questions wise? Any high points you want to bring up on this section otherwise?
I think those are the main, those first couple items are the main things.
Okay.
In that, and then at the bottom there, you can see, again, with those building inspections and the software, that's a new expense, the permit tracking software, that's a new expense for DLM, not for the county. So you can see there the expenses are up from 962 generally to 977 in those lines, and that's salary, fringe, and administration expenses.
Okay.
So on that land use planning that we had extensive conversations about, we're able to reduce, I think you said, the 21,000 from the print or scanning of documents that you're not gonna scan now. Can we plop that in there for sure, since you already had it on
Sure,
the
we can
budget
put
anyway?
we can put that in the non-lapsing account for planning. That's on a different tab later
Okay.
on in the budget.
Okay. Anything else in that section? Revenue notes? Anything you got to comment on there?
Part of the revenue notes, we do, part of this budget was developed with a 3.5% increase in all the fees. The idea there is if we increase tied to inflation a little bit every year, we don't get really behind, and that helps us to address all of our cost increases that are happening, whether it be salary steps, whether it be health insurance, whether it be office supply increases. It just helps us offset the levy, and it's nicer to do a little bit every year than do big changes after long periods of time. So, but also, let's see in here, generally, we've adjusted the fees there, and the total at the bottom, we've increased revenue by about $18,000 in this budget.
Okay.
Are building permit fees, are they anticipated to go down for
Oh.
revenue? Because it doesn't show 92, and typically we're at the 103, 96.
Yeah, and again, that's,
Yeah.
again, it's based on that 80. We took 12% times 80,000, came with that number. those numbers are linked because we pay it on a fee basis.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Comments, concerns? Anything else you guys want to highlight on the budget? This
Yeah,
year?
we, let's see, let me scroll down. There's some other tabs on here.
Yep.
The one thing that this does have reducing the county cost share down to $50 off the, 50,000 off the levy. Normally, we budget 80. We're gonna have approximately 30,000 rolling over into next year. So that puts us, really kind of where we normally are at. So that's one of the ways we bring down the budget in this, current year. All the other tabs are generally money in, money out, accounts. When it comes to grants, the lake management grant, all those kinds of things, it's money in, money out. The only one, I think, we have the vehicle account, that's saving up for money for vehicles. But the rest of those are pretty much money in, money out. So,
The county cost share, if you look at it, the 3-year average, we got a little more than what we've spent on the average. So
yeah, and every year is a
still-
little bit different. Sometimes we have larger, more expensive projects, and especially with inflation, that's driven costs up. And then there's usually a project that was supposed to happen that for various reasons doesn't happen.
Or gets kicked to the next
Gets
year.
kicks to the next year, or it doesn't happen and someone else comes in. So it's really kind of a dynamic fund.
It's down a little bit, but it really won't deplete. Still pretty sufficient. Unless committee feels otherwise.
And just comment. I think
Yes,
on
please.
that cost share, that's the county cost share,
Yes,
right?
The
correct.
county cost share.
I think they usually asked for 80
Just-
with
and-
the hopes
and
that they
figured
get the 50 for sure.
And that may not be a bad way to go still. Make Dave cut it. Yeah, and John. John can, he'll cut it too.
Right. So, one thing to mention, our estimated staffing grant from DATCAP is the same as last year. That hasn't been formally announced. It's our estimate of what it will be. One thing that is a little concerning is there was a reduction in state budget regarding conservation. So not quite sure how that's going to shake out with our staffing grant. So that's a wild card out there that they could potentially reduce that. But we're budgeting for based on the formula.
Mike, could you kind of explain, committee's young here, probably, explain what personnel is under that grant as far as salaries?
The staff that work on conservation are eligible for the staffing grant. Yeah, there's different. It's based on the actual work on conservation that you do. So that's how the formulas come up.
Okay.
And I think it generally funds two positions, the top two positions, and it said the top position at 100%, I believe, right? I think, and the second position at 75, and the third at 50. The third at 50 hasn't been funded for quite some time. So with, a couple, overall, you can see kind of the, where our budget, where the levy is on this. It is difficult to compare last year to this year. I mean, we're essentially, well, it looks like we're down a little bit. But if we, as we look into these balances, if we would choose to allocate that building inspection balance, we could that would be a 1-year reduction. It's not a sustainable thing, the way we're doing it. So that would be, that could bring that 552 down to 332 or less, if you wanted to do that. And again, we're gonna need to bring this back in September, so whatever direction you give today, we'll pull together formally and get it out to you for September.
I think you need to look at those non-recurring accounts and understand what's going into those, the information that you got late yesterday. And then I think we need to somehow figure a ballpark for what we should be budgeting for the
Comprehensive planning.
comprehensive planning, thank you, so that we get something in that line item beyond the 21,000 that we shift right today. Because I don't think we're going to get money back when we submit this to the county board for approval. We need to be sure that we're budgeting for everything that we need now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
As far as options for that non-lapsing account, mainly it would be just putting it back into the budget reducing. That's pretty much our only option.
We could just keep it in that account and it can sit there.
Or if we use like a portion
We could use,
each year, like 50,000 the
we
next 4 years.
could
or
do that
something.
too.
Spread
Yeah.
it out.
Put 50 in and help
It's
use that
mostly
to
our
fund
our operating fund balance is what I would think.
Yeah.
That's what you're leaning towards.
Okay.
is-
Well, we could use that maybe to help fund our planning,
Yeah.
comprehensive plan. Maybe that's a way to use this. So I think we need to look at, I think there's a desire from the committee, because that was one of the things I had on my notes for future agenda items, the comprehensive planning. Whether we do it with staff or we do it with the Mississippi Regional Planning Commission, but there seems to be desire and need for us to participate in some sort of fashion. If we can use some of these funds towards that, or some of the unused employee salaries, or whatever vehicles we have, I think we need to explore that more and see if we can be creative
Yeah.
and help the towns out that way too.
Absolutely.
How many non-lapsing accounts are there currently? Ballpark, you don't have to count them. What do you estimate in front of you?
7, and most of those are grants.
And the grants have to be non-lapsing, so that makes sense.
Vehicle count is not a grant. I think the main ones is building inspection and the vehicle account and comprehensive planning. I think those are the 3 non-grant, non-lapsing accounts.
Okay, then I agree that we can leave it, those non-lapsing accounts as they are probably, so that we have something for cushion to be able to take care of what we think we're going to need to do with the comprehensive planning and whatever else. So given that, do we even need to come back then? Because
I would like to, I think Amy and I discussed, we want to look at a little bit closer on that. I guess what you could do is, one thing you could do is you could approve with the changes, and you could say with the caveat for us to look at that. Well, we developed this with the idea that we would eliminate that building inspection non-lapsing account. That might change how we do these numbers, because that cost item in that, on that pay, early on, we have that factored into expenses, so that would be moved to that non-lapsing account. It's my understanding. So I guess we would, if you're gonna essentially adopt it with a couple of changes, we might just have to do the technical changes to make that happen, to forward it on. But if you want to see a clean copy, what you want to send on to exec finance, I would feel more comfortable bringing it back.
As a committee, I think that's kind of the way we all feel.
And that way you'll be able to see the number in comprehensive planning in that account. You'll see it in writing.
Yep.
And it'll be clear.
do we then just need a motion to bring the budget back to the next
Yes.
meeting? And I will so move.
Okay. Yeah, motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. I don't know if we have any more discussion on the budget. Andy did. Hearing none, I guess we'll call a vote.
Just
Dave.
one question I'm ruminating here. Okay, the non-lapsing account, 200 plus thousand. Are we talking about having you eliminate that whole thing? Or leave the whole thing? Or take
Leaving
some
the
money
whole
out
thing
of
right
it
now.
and leave the rest?
I get, well,
That's all for debate yet, I think, right now.
Well,
Yeah,
what you
leaving it.
taking, what you were talking of taking out, is that the $21,000 or is there more than that for
Actually,
the
the 21's
scanning
in
and
the
all
budget.
that?
I believe the direction, or the consensus was the 21,000 for scanning would go to comprehensive planning. And then the discussion was that to take some money from the building inspection non-lapsing account, figure out what we need more for comprehensive planning, and take that and add that to comprehensive planning.
Figure that part
But
out.
leave,
And that,
leave the account
As
basically
is.
intact.
Correct.
As is,
For potentially another
I
year to do
think
the
that'll-
same thing.
right,
I think that
Okay.
idea allows us to come back to this
right.
in September, October, and create a good plan for the comprehensive planning part of it, and how we're paying for it. So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of bringing this back next month, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll bring that back. Has everyone had a chance to look through the fee schedule, which was also on this line item? Like Mike mentioned, that more or less equated to a 3.5% increase, and then a little rounding to make it easier.
I just am curious if we've compared our fees to any other counties
Yes.
and they're in line.
Yeah, we were in line, or pretty much in line, in the middle to the lower end. Depending, it really kind of, some county, it wasn't consistent across the board, like we're completely lower than Eau Claire or whatever. It's kind of all over the map a little bit when you look at our neighbors. But generally speaking, we're in the middle, and still very, very affordable compared to some other counties.
Well, when I think about the levy and all of the demands of the county for tax dollars, I'm inclined to say we should go with a 5% increase rather than a 3.5%, especially if we're not at the high end of the average for counties out there already.
The way, one of the things I look at this is the lower, not every department has fees it can charge. Some of them have no fees they
Right.
charge. So when we're able to charge fees, it reduces our hit on the levy, and that also helps other departments when we're having a less impact. So these type of decisions, it's just not about this budget. It's really about the overall courthouse budget. And the estimates I've seen on inflation for the remainder of 2023 is anywhere from 3.5% to 7%. And I went with the lower end, so
Like the way he's like just looking at like the sanitary permits, I mean, it's all rounded, so it makes sense. That equates to 4.5, pretty close. So rounding it to where it makes sense, I think it's probably pretty decent. We're definitely not going up too much or too little, but we need to follow. Otherwise, we're into a place where we're levying other people to fund other people's projects. And that doesn't seem fair either, so.
So
And
are
we
you
need to
saying we
follow.
should increase the percentage then? Is that your?
So take the at-ground, the sanitary, the top one, $450 currently. Mike has it at $470, which is a 4.4% increase. I mean, if you went 5%, it's $470, $250. I mean, is it a big deal? I don't know.
So leave it the way it
I
is,
think
because
470 is
through
pretty
the rounding,
decent.
we probably achieved a 5% anyway.
Pretty close.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
'cause I-
good with that.
yeah.
Going forward too, if you revisit it every year, then it's not such a big
Correct.
hit each year.
Yeah.
If it's something that you
Because
want to look,
it did get
look at.
neglected for some time, and then we had to do some big changes a couple of years ago. So maybe it was last year. I don't remember.
I think it was last year.
Last
These
year.
new fees
Yeah.
kicked in January 1.
Yeah, so we revisit annually, it makes sense.
And the building inspection fees did not get increased in 2023.
At least we
So
don't know.
it was
about
just, it was
24.
a lot of the zoning stuff we did for 2023, because that was what was way behind.
Okay.
So,
This-
this proposal's for all the zoning stuff, plus the building inspections.
Okay,
All
that
right.
makes sense.
Everybody, any questions, additions? Otherwise, entertain a motion on the building fees, proposed fees for 2024.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Todd, second by Larson. Any, to approve the presented, well, I don't want to put more words in your mouth.
I approve it as it's presented in front of us right now.
Okay. Fee schedule. Okay. Larson. Okay. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. So I think we've went as far as we can on that subject for the day. Next item is a resolution to apply for a producer-led watershed grant. Discussion, possible action.
I looked a little closer at the grant requirements. This is a DAT-CAP grant, not a DNR grant, so it's a little different process. The idea here is producers are key to improving water quality in our watersheds. We have an outstanding group called Buffalo Trempealeau Farmers Network that's been in place, and the grant requirements from DAT-CAP require a, quote, collaborator that serves as a fiscal manager and kind of not the leadership, but assisting the group in accomplishing things. And that group has been a guy from Pheasants Forever, and with changes in their organization, they need to move away from that assistance. And so the group is comfortable with Department of Land Management fulfilling that role. Typically, throughout the state, the Conservation Office plays that role in other groups. So we will be applying for a grant. We'll probably be bringing that back through at the September meeting. And that includes having, at some point, if the grant is awarded, we need to have a memorandum of understanding between that group and this department so we can move forward with that. So what I would like from the committee, if you would like to see us do that, just make a motion to have us proceed with that. If you have concerns, please let me know.
I'd entertain a motion or,
I'll make the motion to proceed with that.
okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Klein, second by Waldera. Any other discussion? I can speak to it being a really good group because I was one of the originals, founded it, and now I don't have time to go anymore because of things like this. But it is a great group of farmers, and it's neat having that local farmer-led, so that's key. All in favor of proceeding with that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. County Conservationist Operations Report. Haley, what do you have for us?
Morning, everyone. It is.
Morning.
Yes, it is
It's still morning.
So kind of along the same lines as last month, still moving forward with projects. Right now they're a little bit slower. I don't know if contractors are probably extremely busy with all their other projects and different things going on. So right now we still have probably about 50%, actually over 50% of our projects that still need to occur. So I've been in contact with a lot of our contractors, seeing when we can get those scheduled. Looks like a lot of them are coming probably late August, early September, which is actually a really good time because then the seeding will really take, provided the weather cooperates. Again, Mother Nature is its own beast. So, but projects are going. I'm actually heading out to one right after this, so we're staying busy. O&M inspections are also being completed, so operation and maintenance on previously completed projects. So we've been kind of rotating through our operation and maintenance, our 10-year operation and maintenance. So we have been looking at all the projects that have been installed in the last 10 years, and then we've been taking kind of a mix of ones from 10 years, 9, 8, all the way down. And we want to interact with the individuals, and a lot of them were done before any of our time. So we want to, reconnect with these landowners and see how their projects are holding up, and just make sure that they're still following operation and maintenance, and see what else is on their property. Maybe we can provide another project for them. So it's a good opportunity just to, have interactions and make those networking connections. Other inspections that are happening are the NR 151 checks, which include like a livestock sighting, a manure storage, or the farmland preservation. Apparently I'm tongue-tied today. And those have started as well. So we're going around to different farming entities and doing complete checks of those farming operations and producers and everything. So again, making all those network connections. They've been perceived really well. Rick has been doing quite a few of them, and he's been really welcomed on to each of them, and really showing what is all out there. So I think that it has been a positive light, and the word is getting around too. People keep saying like, oh yeah, the county's coming out, but it's been a good thing. So I think it's a positive on our aspect that we're getting out and making those more connections with all the producers throughout the county. So the Buffalo Trempealeau Farmer Network, which you guys just passed that resolution, there was an event last Thursday, and that went over really well. I was not able to attend, but Rick and Reed from our office were able to attend. They said there was a good mix of producers from the area, along with area professionals, like NRCS was there, some of our office, and then Cargill was the sponsor, so there was a good mix of them as well at that event. And I think one of the highlights that I've heard is that there was a drone seating display, or they actually seated areas, which I was like, oh, I wish I would have gone. That would have been super cool to see. So that hopefully I will be able to see here in the next few months, or maybe I can reach out to the individual who does it and see when they're going to do their cover crops or something, and go from there, because I think that's a really interesting technology that's coming out. So overall went really well, and we're, as a department, we're excited to really work more with this group, because it is an awesome group and they have really expanded. So it's really cool to see. Talking about cover crops, we are planning to more cost sharing again this year. So we did it last year, and we did dip into 2 funding sources last year. So we used the rest of our SAG funding, which is through DATCAP. So we did, I think it was $10,000 out of that last year, and then we dipped into our county cost share to do the remaining amounts of cost share or cover crops that had applied for that. So we are probably planning to do both again this year. I think we have, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on all the numbers, but I think we have $15,000 from SAG this year, depending on what other things come up if we get a nutrient management plan. So kind of depends on what's coming down the line. But that application will be out shortly. We're working out the kinks. Some of them, we had some, last year was really a big year that we pushed for it. So working out some kinks that came up, and just working as a department trying to iron those all out. So going through that. The reason I was not able to attend on Thursday, the Buffalo Trempealeau Network event, was I was at science camp that was put on by UW Extension for ages, I believe it was 1st through 5th grade. And so I was there on Thursday doing they do a rotation. So I was part of that, and I was teaching them about stream and pond macroinvertebrates, so all the little bugs and everything that are in the water. And I think it went over really well. Yes, there were a couple kids that were like, oh my God, bugs, and they would just scream and run away. So it's, you have that. But I think a lot of them really were excited to see that there was that much life in our streams and our surface waters. And then we related it to water quality and kind of went back to see, well, what can we do to really improve, or do you think we need to improve this Trempealeau County streams? And the general consensus was, yes, we do need to do something. So it was a really good day. Yes, it was a hot one. The kids were you know, a little tired at the end of the day, but that's good. We got to send them home, and they were probably ready for a nap at that point. So probably another thing we'll probably look at doing again next year is partnering with them and really getting the department out there and talking about all that stuff. So it went over really well, and Extension was happy to have us because we hadn't been there for a couple years. So they were excited. Good. Last thing, talking another about, you know, it all kind of coincides here, aquatic invasive species. There is a snapshot day, which is coming up August 19th, which is a Saturday. I think it's 2-3 Saturdays or whatever from now. And this is a statewide initiative. You're taking a snapshot of surface water to see what kind of aquatic invasive species are in there. And there is going to be one held in Trempealeau this year at the Trempealeau Village Central Park. And I think it runs from like 9 to 1 p.m. So if anyone wants, or if you're down in that area, it would be a great event to just kind of see what is out there. And it really helps the state as a whole to see what invasive species are up and coming or have moved further into the state, or how good our water is. So I can't say what's going to be out there, but I think this is the first event in Trempealeau County that is going to be happening. So there's other ones all around the state. So if you actually look at the Wave Snapshot Day, if you just search that into Google, there's going to be all kinds of them. I think there's one in Eau Claire, potentially one in La Crosse. Then there's all over. I mean, there's probably 20 plus events. So it's a really good day, and that'll be good. So questions? Yes.
Have we started treating Third Lake for that lily palm weed or whatever through that grant from
At
Charmaine
this
started?
point, we have not. The Friends of Trempealeau Lake, Friends of yeah. Yes, that's it.
Yep.
I just got an email from them, actually, I think it was 2-3 days ago, that they have been very busy with all of the spring flooding that had happened. So the farmers were still, trying to recover from most of that. So they are now back on the bandwagon to get really working on getting that group founded more. There is a website now, and our grant is to establish a lake management plan first, and then we will be able to use that to then implement the actions of removing that pondweed. So
Because that was a matching grant then or whatever, or that the grant funded the engineering or whatever?
The planning.
Yep.
yeah,
Planning, and
something
then
like
the group then I assume funded for the herbicide or the removal?
and that's still in discussions. I can't say when that will occur. I don't think it would happen in 23, but it's something definitely looking for 24.
There's a lot of discussion on how to approach dealing with aquatic plants in those lakes. It's not clear cut, so we're kind of going through that process with the lake management plan, working with this group to figure out what's the best way to go about that.
Okay.
The other
Yeah.
event you said in Trempealeau.
Yeah.
What did you say? What day? What that was?
August 19th.
Okay.
And if you like, I can send out an email with all that information. That would not be a problem at all.
Yeah,
So
that'd be good. Thanks.
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Haley? Good. Glad to hear you getting back out and doing things that we used to do, and
Yeah, it's
engage
exciting.
the youth. So awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Good. Okay. Well, thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
Haley. Next, we have payment requests for cost share and grant expenses, and that's probably Haley and Amy both.
All right, so today we are requesting payment for 4. The first one is for the NMFE, the Nutrient Management Farm Education Grants for the soil sampling for Roland Prunzinski. The contract amount is the $598.50, so that is the amount that we are asking for today. And then the other 3 are in regards to the notice of discharge. The first one's for Brightside Electric for the feed storage runoff control system for the electrical portion of that. That pay request is $16,200. And then we also have Olson Pride Dairy, which is for the soil sampling to certify that soil samples. That pay request is $11,385. And then the final one is to the MSA Professional Services for engineering fees. That pay request is $26,631. So I did have a typo. I apologize for that. So the total then for the notice of discharge is actually $54,216 between those three pay requests. So I'm needing a motion to go ahead and pay those three unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved from Larson,
Second.
second from Munson. Any other questions or
Is this
additions?
project wrapping up now? Because it's been a long, tedious
It
one, it
has been
seems.
for quite some time.
Yes, it has been a long one. It should be, the grant runs to December 31st. So they have, I believe, a grade stabilization to install, and that should be done, I would hope, within the month, because this is the time to do it. So,
Okay.
yes, that is
So there will be
wrapping
one-
up.
There will be a couple more bills coming through for that project.
Yes, there will be.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, we have motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Payment requests approved. Thank you. Item number 13, DLM space needs in courthouse remodel design.
The connection, just be aware that the connection from the new addition into the current courthouse is coming through Amy's office. And that's gonna happen, we're told, sometime in September. So Amy has halfway moved out of her office into Charmaine's old office. And we're working on moving more of her stuff. And we have been moving stuff around our space to create a cubicle space for our vacant position. Because essentially they're going right through Amy's office and to a vacant workstation sometime in September. I'm sure that will be up in the air. So things are getting a little tight there. But with the new remodel, we've gone round and round, multiple meetings throughout the last year. You can see in the PDF file in your packet, we are to be moved to the south courtroom on the second floor. We have had discussions with Samuel's group about adding more space for DLM. Why? We're receiving less space than we have now. And we have we did have space for storage in the earliest model, but that was given to IT. So now we have zero storage in our office. We don't have the conference room that we currently have. And so I am requesting your support in asking the property committee to, if you see in your document, there's 3 existing bathrooms in the current courtroom. And I'm asking your support to communicate with property to remove the plumbing in those rooms to make those storage for DLM. Because right now we're an office of, the proposal is just offices and workstations. And so we could really use that space.
Should there be a wall for the surveyor's office or not? Because should he have a closed basic office of his own so that he could have private conversations with citizens?
The direction from the property committee is that part-time contractors and employees should use workstations and use the hoteling concept, because allocating, this is their direction now. Their direction is that allocating office space for part-time positions and contracts is an expensive way to provide space.
There's a state statute, though, that says that the county must provide a, how does it read here? Let's see, county surveyor, the county shall provide the county surveyor with a private office for records and reproduction of papers. So, and that's state statute 59.45 that requires the county to provide the county surveyor with record space, storage, books, reproduction of papers, and a private office to consult.
then,
So I don't know.
then make the motion and communicate that be added to this plan to the property committee.
I make that motion that the county surveyor has his own private space per statute 59.45.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor,
Second.
second by Klein. Any other discussion?
The trends for staff who are part-time in other areas is for hoteling spaces. They're less than ideal for a number of reasons, in my opinion, but it is the trend. What the argument has been as far as being able to offer a private space, when that has come up in healthcare at least, is that there is a conference room that can be used. So you can, instead of having a workspace that's rather large, that doesn't necessarily need, it's not needed all the time, is that you are then able to take somebody with you for a private conversation to a conference room. Not opposed to that handling it that way, except to say that there is no conference space in land management. So I think it has to be one or the other. Like, I guess I would offer that maybe the motion be that we consider either there is a private office for the surveyor or a conference room provided in that space for private conversation.
Well, you'd have to change state statute because that's what it states, is that state statute says, mandates that the county provide this county surveyor with a private office.
Is it a private office or a private space for conversation? I know you read it. I apologize. I didn't hear.
You can read it, it's highlighted.
One of the things too I've had the dialogue with Samuel's group on is identifying space for future growth. Those types of things have been accommodated for other departments, but not Department of Land Management. And we would have those discussions. They would say, all right, let's identify future growth space for DLM, and then the plans would come through 3 months later, and it would be the same plan. So that's why I'm here today, to ask this committee to communicate additional space for DLM.
In regard to Tony's point, I would just ask any differences between an employee, surveyor being an employee or being a contractor. Does that fit into the equation at all?
Yeah, that, I guess the other comment is whether that position stays in management under this facility or goes to
Another one.
land records.
Right.
Since there's space there supposedly.
Well, then you can always look at the definition of office.
Right.
A room, set of rooms, or building used as a space for commercial or professional. So an office doesn't mean this is a personal office for me, it just means it's a room for that particular person.
When we look at the layout on that second floor, the department to the north has future unapproved positions, space for those future unapproved positions. There's also construction efficiencies that could move a wall to the north and would be easily added on to the Department of Land Management. So there are options, but of course, it requires taking space away from someone else, just like IT got space, our previously allocated space for DLM. So there are options out there. At the end of the day, I'm looking for some support to communicate something to the property committee to saying what the current proposal going forward is not satisfactory.
Okay,
Correct.
so we do have a motion on the table.
There's a motion and a second on the table to provide the surveyor with his own space.
Yep, understood. So. Dave,
To
you
move,
asked
to
it.
move it on to
Property.
property.
Correct.
To correct that space.
Okay,
Oh, you're adding that? Okay.
okay, I think we'll call that vote then, at this point. All in favor of sending a Communication to property regarding adding space for a county surveyor office, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion carried. Anything else we would like to forward on to
I think based on,
property?
oh, if I can.
Yes.
Based on Mike's comments earlier in regard to the potential removal of bathrooms for storage space, that, as I've looked at it, we're not taking that much away. There's bathrooms available kind of across the hall from there. I don't see an issue with them being removed as bathroom space.
Me
So
either.
I would make a motion that we request property to consider removing the plumbing to create storage space for land use.
Second that motion.
Motion made and seconded.
I guess I'm just wondering, we're asking for some very specific things, and I'm not opposed to any of what's being asked, but I think what I am opposed to is that we're really having a very narrow approach to this.
Right.
And maybe what I would recommend, at least in my mind, would be that we ask Samuel's group or property committee to reevaluate that space as a whole and say, okay, we are not meeting the needs of future growth for this department. We're not meeting the needs of the surveyor in this department. We are identifying spaces that could potentially be better utilized. So let's meet and talk about that as a bigger picture than just these pieces.
I agree.
And I think most of the conversations, when we've talked about this remodel, have been not at property committee meetings. So if it was a property committee agenda item, that might help elevate the importance of that.
So
Randy?
So
do we need to make a resolution to include Dawn's language as an amended part of the motion that's already been approved? Because I do like it broader, descriptive.
I mean, there's no room for growth in this whatsoever. This barely meets needs.
especially if we're considering now what you had brought up, Mr. Munson, about potentially needing additional staff already. We're considering that, right? So
Yeah, there you
And
go.
we don't have a spot for that.
I don't feel like we're meeting the department's needs as a
Correct.
whole.
Even right now.
Right.
Let alone any future growth. And there's no room for it. So I do agree broader language is definitely needed because.
I don't know how, do I amend a motion or do I make a separate motion or how does that happen?
Mine was basically just for
The
the
survey.
current definition or an office space in the current site. So basically hers would take precedence
Over
mine
that.
If you want to move
Okay.
the whole department to another site.
Maybe let's make a broader resolution or motion.
So I'd just like to make a motion that we have Samuel's group and the property committee collaborate with this group about the space for DLM and consider all options
And
for future growth.
Including removing plumbing from such.
Sure.
As a.
I think,
With that statement in there, I would.
That sounds like engineering.
sure, we can say that. The one thing I'll say is that my understanding is that the number of bathrooms that have to be in a space are based on the number of occupancy at any given time. And I'm guessing, or at the maximum amount of time, so my guess is they're gonna say we have to have it, but I think it's a good question to ask.
Most of the time, I think maybe Kenny alluded to the fact, well, that costs money to take them out. You know, it wasn't,
Can't we cap it?
that's what
Let's talk about options, I guess,
Yeah,
that's what's on the
right.
table.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have a motion. We do not have a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Todd. Any other discussion on that? I think that's a step forward personally. Hearing none. All in favor?
Read the resolution back to us.
Don Mulder made a motion that Samuel's group collaborate with property committee on space for DLM. That's what I have.
To allow for future growth. The current,
You could say which may include
Which may include the removal of plumbing in adjacent spaces.
Yeah.
to allow for future growth. Because there's nothing for future.
Or
growth.
other options to allow for future growth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Does that make sense as amended? Or Okay, all in favor of forwarding that to property and Samuel's group, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So, item number 14 is our land information presentation and surveyor contract discussion, possible action. So, this was omitted from the initial agenda for this month, not by, basically, there's some discussion that had happened between individuals, no meeting, that felt like this was a special meeting was warranted. I had Mike do some polling. Admittedly, he said he didn't get through everyone. That's why it was omitted. And also looking at the agenda and what we had on our plate for today. So that just want to be said that's why it wasn't done here. We can have discussion. I don't know where we want to go right now with it. So what directions the committee wish to take with this at this point?
Well, as Mr. Larson mentioned last month, what are the benefits of this position staying in here? We all heard opposition that they wish to move it, so I guess maybe since there's conflict here, I don't know. I believe should be moved.
I did want to take a little time to think about the presentation, which I very much appreciated, and to understand the relationship better with the surveyor and the different departments. And I completely know what you told me, but I'm one that likes to just look at things a little bit and think about them, right? I think that for me, after doing due diligence, what I feel was due diligence, at least, I'm in favor of moving the contract to land records. But I will say I do not like how this came about. I do not think it was appropriately handled from the get-go. But putting that aside, does it make sense to have the surveyor in the land records? In my opinion, it does.
Okay. Other comments from the committee?
I'm in agreement with that. Anything I have researched, it looks to me that the most benefit would be to have it in the land records.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I also agree after talking to other involved parties and learning more about how the surveyor interacts with the different departments, where it would be a better fit with land records.
Okay.
And by saying that then, I assume land records has enough floor space then to accommodate the surveyor then? Maybe then, not to follow up our plans of trying to expand our position, will that be a negative impact on saying, okay, here is a potential space in the existing?
We still need future growth room.
Correct.
So,
I agree.
and having an extra office in
It's
ELU
not much.
is not much for cushion, so. No.
But I mean, as long as,
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. though.
right, but I mean, as long as there's accommodations there to meet state statute and everything else, make everybody cohesive and moving forward. Do we
I
need
make
to-
a motion to move the surveyor contract to land records.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. Any other discussion? Oh, we have Rick with fingers.
Clarify when.
Oh,
The contract goes to the end of the year, current contract does.
Correct.
So under the
Previous
contract,
discussions-
Starting in January 1, 2024.
The new
Makes sense, yeah.
contract.
Just want to clarify.
Yeah.
is there a reason we can't renegotiate a contract sooner than when the contract term is currently?
It would no longer be in our department, it'd be under theirs, so it'd no
That'd be a-
longer be under our authority.
I believe you could make them,
Finance.
I believe, I mean, unless I'm wrong, you could say, hey, starting September 1, right? The current contract, it could take effect September 1, right? No?
I mean, we would have to talk about it and get it signed, yes.
Right,
I mean,
there would
some-
have to
Basically, you're
be,
just
Oh,
making an
to go-
amendment
oh,
to
to
the
go to the
existing
other committee.
contract is all you're doing.
Correct, I mean,
Gotcha.
there's a few logistics that have
Gotcha.
to be worked out, so.
so from a timing perspective and what needs to happen for the logistics to happen, especially given your leaving,
Yeah.
is it reasonable to think that we can have that before the contract term? completed? It's like maybe instead of September,
No.
October?
My gut feeling is with Rick leaving and with nothing else really planning to change, let's let this contract expire. And I mean, as far as where, I don't know if it matters where we would have, a surveyor sit per se. I mean, for that matter, that's kind of irrelevant. But I think in the interest of time and not putting more on Rick's plate and other committees' plates, nothing really is changing at this point, other than who's overseeing the contract.
Okay, so make a motion to move the surveyor
That's my
contract
opinion anyway.
to, I agree, to the Land Records Department, effective January 1st of 2024.
Okay. Tony, is that friendly to you?
So that's the amendment to the original motion.
Just to
Is
put a
what-
Yes,
date
I'm
on
sorry.
it.
Just put a date on it.
Yes, second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? I think that's a,
So then salary will come out of this year's budget yet until the end, and then it'll transfer
Next
over,
is on
basically a
those guys.
line item between departments.
yep. Okay, anything else? All right, so Dave?
He said line item, but at that point, then land use budget can just eliminate that figure from your budget.
Line item cleans it up, so. Any other discussion? Hearing none? All in favor of approving the moving of this contract, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item 15, an easement previously approved and signed by the county, and that is what Rick is here for, and Rose as well. And Joe. Oh, we're gonna get everybody involved for this one. Okay.
Is it that online auction?
I don't know. I don't have the details on this one, but we're gonna find out.
I would talk when I'm walking, but it's not in a microphone.
Is the corrected version that you're handing out, or is there one of each?
Oh, okay, this is.
All right, so this was, stems back from December of '22, when the board, committee board approved a utility easement with the village of Trempealeau. The utility easement in and of itself is not in question. The legal description that was attached to that resolution was incorrect. So in working with Rose, Joe, and Mike, the attachment, or this document in front of you is the proposed resolution and the documents that would correct that legal description. And we believe this would be everything that we would need in order to record this, and then we're good to go. I have spoken with the Village of Trempealeau, their administrator, and he is on board with this as well. So that's what this document does, is it corrects the legal description of the easement that goes across the Trempealeau County property. Just a little bit of background, the utility easement itself is like a 58-page document, but about 40 of those pages are signature pages because the village entered into the same agreement with all sorts of property owners. We just were one of them that signed that document, so there was all sorts of other people that signed the document as well. This just pertains to our easement only.
My concern is that if we don't correct it, if there is a project in the future, it could hold that up. We could lose funding, or at least, or hold the project up so we wouldn't be able to continue. So that's why it needs to be corrected.
So this document would still need to go to property committee and then full county board.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
All right, guys, dummy it down for me. What's changing?
Sure. So if you look on the plat of survey.
Yep.
And if you look at page 2 of the plat of survey where it gives the legal description.
Yep.
There were 2 changes that were made. I believe where it says part of lot 8 towards the top, I believe previously it said government lot 8, and so that word was taken out. And then there was another section, I don't have it right in front of me.
There was some footage in the body that was excluded when they when Joe reviewed it, he talked to the surveyor, and Davy Engineering made that correction also.
It was maybe 4 words, if I remember correctly. We had a conference call with Davy Engineering. They agreed that there was those changes needed to be made, and so they issued the corrected one, so.
That was the changes that were made on the document that you first signed the resolution for and agreed to grant the easement. The thing that precipitated the correction actually is that you ended up signing the 58-page document, which granted additional easements on other properties that the committee hadn't agreed to. And when Rose says getting the record straight, she's got a resolution that grants this, but she's got an easement that granted the 58-page document. So as far as the hierarchy of what the county is giving on their property goes, you basically wanted to do this, but you ended up doing this. This is what I recommended against, simply because it was a document that had numerous meets and bounds legal descriptions that was almost impossible to disseminate how it affected the county's property. What I had advised was to get in a map, a survey with a legal description that showed exactly how it affected the county's property. This will do that. And this should, according to Rick, supersede and replace the easement that was signed that basically granted away whatever rights we may have had for whatever reason that we'll never really know. Hopefully now we will know, like we should have originally.
And Rick has made it really clear what document number in my office has to be corrected. So between all of us, we've got this done, and it'll be fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
Um,
I make a motion to move forward with the resolution as written.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none. Dave?
The fly swoop again. Don't we normally read the entire resolution into the record here?
Don't know that we
Usually
do.
county board usually.
That's a probably Rick question.
I'd say I know county board you do. I don't know if you
don't know that we
traditionally
do
do it
it.
at this meeting or not.
Okay.
I mean, you certainly can. That's up to you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? You wanted to read it?
If we don't need to, I don't feel like
No, I think
we should do it.
Thank you, Verge.
Okay.
All right, hearing no questions or discussion, I will call the question. All in favor of approving this corrected utility easement legal description for the village of Trempealeau, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I just want to thank you for moving the county surveyor. We work very closely, and I appreciate your support. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you people for being as perfectionist as you people are and helping this committee do the proper things instead of the confusion and arguing that we've had over certain things.
Okay. Item 16, Department of Land Management Director, Operations Report.
I think I kind of, in some of the other agenda items, talked about some of the stuff that we're doing with the remodeling, moving in the office. So we're working on records retention, those types of things to create the space for the connection from the new addition to the building. And so that's taking up some of our time. And of course, we have Haley updated on conservation projects. And so that's all I have for today.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? I guess the only one I had was from our discussion earlier is to look into comprehensive planning for the county, whether we have hire and add county staff to do so, or look at, contracting or however we see fit with that, but having future discussions with that both and how we do it and how we pay for it. Okay, anyone else have anything else? Hearing nothing. Next regular meeting date, I don't have my phone on me, would be
September 6th.
September 6th. It's already on my calendar. September 6th, good with everyone? Stick with 8:30. Okay, we will do that. Next item on our agenda is a closed session. I assume we still need that? Okay. Closed session, would somebody like to read the proper language to go into closed session? You just read, move you into that per word for word.
He's gonna read.
Convene into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance of personnel, or evaluation data or of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in the Department of Land Management.
Okay, we have a motion made. Do we have a second? Second by Larson. I'll do a voice vote.
Yes.
Severson, yes. Klein?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Munson, yes. Todd, yes. Waldera? Nelson, yes. We are in closed session.